start and talk about it first?
No. Sure. I'll go ahead and just kind of give my thoughts real quick. It's funny because I had read this case study in a different class I took 2 semesters ago. Did any of you guys?
No.
I had noticed it. It was a little bit different wording, different people, but I remembered it from another class. And I remember just feeling, what would I have done if it was my son and a lady needed her, his equipment, and then so reading a little bit of the backstory of what this family had gone through before that, because in the last class I had just read the portion of when the son was in the hospital. And so it kind of puts it into perspective with the loss that they had experienced with Philip early on, already losing a child and knowing what that feels like. And I can't imagine going through that. So I felt sorrowful for them, but in a way I really looked up to how they were able to have a positive outcome from that, and to look at the opportunities that came from that crisis that we kind of talked about in the ABCX model. And really the only things I remember just thinking is, what would I have done? I don't know if I would have reacted as, I'm sure they had their moments, but it seemed like they had as a family, they had a level head about the outcome of it, and were able to see the blessings that came from that, and I really admired that about them. So those are kind of my thoughts.
I'll go next.
Okay.
No, I agree with you. I kind of thought about how me and my family would be able to cope through something like that. And me and my husband have very different perspectives, and sometimes I wonder if that would be something that would be that would rock our relationship, or would make us closer together, because I don't feel like you really know until you go through it yourselves.
Right.
But the other thought that I thought about their situation was how in the beginning of the relationship they experienced that loss, and then they actually struggled with it. It created kind of a distance between their relationship, because they didn't learn to lean on each other. Like it talked about how she chose to, since he wasn't there, she leaned more on her mother and others for emotional support, or it said her mother and her daughter, I believe, for emotional support, and not on her spouse, because he wasn't there when it happened, and then the whole reaction that happened. And so it kind of created this pattern that they said that set this tone for the rest of their relationship, and kind of a distance. And then their children kind of picked up on this distance. And so their family just had a rough time, I think, because of the dynamics that they set in the beginning. But I feel like this second child that they lost, they chose, or from past experience, whatever it may be, they chose to use the tools of the gospel and coming together and leaning on one another, versus trying to do it alone. Where in the past they did it alone, and they decided to do, okay, well, we're going to do this as a family. We're going to pray about this. They basically were given a second chance, I think. And what it talked about, what a difference it made for their family, and how I think it strengthened their testimonies. It changed their perspective. And so even though it's a tragic thing, they took they turned it into a positive thing. That's what I'm trying to say. So
yeah, that's a great point.
Oh, go ahead. Well, along that same line, one of the things that I noticed, you know how the ABCX model says that the way that you look at something or the thoughts that you have about it change it. And I noticed that they quoted the dad's thoughts as saying, we don't know how long we'll have any of these children. And then it almost seemed like the rest of the family played off of that, that the dad was saying how much he valued and loved each one of the children. And somehow just that positive thinking or that reinforcement really changed the trajectory of the family and where they went from there. So I agree with all the things you guys have said, but I just thought we'd add that.
No, yeah, it like made me think of like the family system theory, like all the subsystems, and how if like the marital subsystem like isn't strong, then like I feel like none of the subsystems are going to be strong. And so as when they went through that the second time when the child died, they like focused on their subsystem, like the marital subsystem, and they built upon it. And so then all the subsystems were strong, like the parental one and the sibling. And so I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Those are all really good points. Okay, you guys are so awesome. Sometimes I get in groups and no one wants to talk. This is so great. Okay, so should we go ahead and just, let's see. Nancy, how do you feel about bullet point number 1, how it says briefly summarize the case? Do we need to?
No, I think I can do that. I looked at the rubric. It's only worth 5 points. It doesn't probably need to be real in depth. And I think that we all just discussed it, so we kind of all know what it is. So I'll put a few little brief parts.
Would it help? Quick question for you, Nancy. Since, I mean, I answered the questions on my own. I know we're going to discuss it too, but should I email that? Should I email mine what I've done to you? Would that help at all?
If you want, I mean, I can add it.
You don't have to.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful. Do you have my email? I think I put it down in the.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna try and do it tonight so that it's done. So if you wouldn't mind, or even by tomorrow morning, we have a stake temple day tomorrow, and I have to go and attend the whole day and babysit for half of it. So I was gonna try and get it done tonight.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right after this meeting.
Okay.
Perfect. That'd be so wonderful.
Yeah, and Nancy, if it ends up being that you're busy with everything,
it's not. It'll be
I
fine.
can do it too.
Okay.
I promise.
You are awesome. Okay, so maybe let's go ahead and move down to bullet point number 2. It says, list any principles or concepts from the course that can be applied in offering help or direction for the family. And I'll go ahead and just throw out one I put was, we had kind of touched on it, but that ABCX model, I just loved that. And what Nancy said that really stuck out to me with this model is how our cognitions and thoughts really are what determine how we view the crisis and how we cope with the stress that comes with it. And I think being able to digest the whole case study as a whole, there's so many points to it, but being able to kind of digest the trials that they've gone through and plug it into that model, and then at the end to see the overall blessings that have come from their crisis, which a lot of people are like, maybe don't understand that there are some blessings that come from that until they see it written out or kind of digest it that way. I know that in the moment it's really hard to see what good can come from something like that. But with that model, I went ahead and put that model down as something that could apply direction or offer direction for this family in that time. So that was one concept I added. Is there any others that you guys put down?
I talked about family council and just like how maybe that could help them like come together as a family, and because they're going through this really hard thing, and so it can maybe strengthen them together. So that's something I brought up.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I wrote down things you guys already talked about. So the family circumflex model, which you talked about earlier, but how, I mean, just looking at that, seeing how their perspectives and how their family might change,
Mm-hmm.
how it used to be to now. And then the family council method, because I mean, I feel like they already kind of did it in the end. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
exactly like the outline for it, but they came together. So they already
Yeah.
started that. But then be able to do like the actual steps in the family council method would be good, because then you can, like, especially in the beginning, you get to express your love for each one of them. And I think, especially with losing someone, they might feel like, it sounds like there's a lot of peace in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that's going to necessarily stay that way once they go through different things in their individual lives. They might um, start feeling more empty in different things, or just from having that member of their family not there anymore. And so I feel like doing that, they'd be able to stay connected with one another and make sure they're continually feeling peace through losing someone.
Mm-hmm. You know, I talked to my mom about, I don't know how we got on the subject, but we were talking about how in her day and age, she said people really didn't go, well, I don't know how she worded it exactly, but she basically said a lot of people didn't go to counseling, and there was such a bad stigma on counseling that it was almost like families just didn't talk about things, or, you know, you're kind of left to deal with depression and things like that on your own. And if you had to go to a counselor, it was this stigma of like, you're crazy or something's wrong with you. And so I think now it's really awesome that we have, you know, family home evening where we can get together and talk about the gospel. But I do think there's something different in having an actual family council and sitting down with one another, because there could be, like you were saying, Jesse, allowing that support that we may not see our siblings need throughout our busy days, being able to sit down with one another and really getting to know how they're coping with things or what they're struggling with. I think that goes a long way in building that strength in those subsystems, like Melissa was saying too. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, because my mom said we really didn't talk about things with our parents too much. So
My parents are the same way.
yeah. Let's see, Nancy, did you have anything on that bullet point that was different than what we had already discussed, or?
I just, both of those, well, all of those, but the other one that I had thought a little bit about was the family systems theory, where they talk about how you don't blame anybody for what has happened. You just see this problem. And I thought, you know, they didn't talk about it at all in the case, but there could have been some of that, but it didn't appear that there was. And I just think it would be important for nobody to blame the mom that she didn't get him there in time, or seek help or whatever. So I just touched on that family systems theory a little bit in that area, but mostly the same three things that you guys talked about.
Okay, awesome. Okay, are we going too fast for you, Nancy?
No.
Or are we okay? Okay.
It's perfect.
All right, let's move down to number 3. List relevant risks or dangers the family and its members face. And one that I had put down that really stood out to me was, I think, drawn from the first section of the case study, when Peter and, is it Jeanette or Janet? Jeanette. I think it was Jeanette was her name.
Oh, good question. What is it? Jeanette? Is it Jeanette? Is that how you say
Yeah,
it?
Jeanette.
Yeah, okay. They didn't talk about losing Philip for 53 years. Like, I thought that was so bizarre. And it just said that they, that happened in probably 1960, 1961, and they didn't talk about it again. They didn't talk about how they were coping with it, the sadness that came from it, losing him, if they were doing okay. They didn't discuss that until this interview or whatever came up in 2013. And I just thought, geez, that could be a real danger for a marriage if you have all that emotion and your thoughts just to yourself, and you don't feel like you can disclaim those to your partner. That can actually become a really big wedge between you and your spouse. And so I thought that their relationship at the beginning, losing the baby, how they handled that and did not practice effective communication skills was a risk for their marriage. And I felt like there was a little bit of contention there too at the hospital, because once again, they didn't communicate. He came and thought Philip was still alive, where she had lost him during the night, and no one had called the dad. And so anyway, the first one that stood out to me was the husband and wife's solid relationship, and how the lack of communication could have been a really big risk factor for them. Luckily, they were able to stick it out and kind of move on the way that they were able to as a couple. But I think that would have really been hard for a lot of couples, and eventually might have even been something that caused a separation.
Yeah, I agree. The one of the relationships that I was concerned about is the twins, because I have twin boys, and I just thought this little boy that died has a 6-year-old twin brother that is going to be really, really suffering with the loss of his twin. So that was one of the risks that I thought would be important for people to pay attention to. And being so young, he may get overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anyone else?
We need
I focused actually.
3.
What?
We need at least 3. So the relationship, the mother and father, and the twin.
Oh. I was just going to say the parents and just each child, because the fact that they did cope with the second loss of a child better. The fact that the first one, they kind of, with the first loss that they experienced, like you said, they kind of dealt with it and then just moved on, never talked about it. Doesn't go in depth about if there was any further talk about the first child's loss, but we know they didn't talk about it, like you said, for that extended amount of time. Since that occurred, I mean, why wouldn't they deal with it the same way? Even though they prayed together as a family and they got an answer, they haven't shown that they wouldn't do the same thing later. Like that they'll close off, they could potentially close off and then not talk to the children about this anymore. When children, yes, they might have each other to talk about that, but they really need their parents' perspective on their second loss. And so I would say the parents and each child.
That's great. Okay. Are we good with that? Should we move on to 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, Jessie, did you want to say anything?
Or Melissa, did you have the same one? that we did?
Yeah, I basically had the same ones. I kind of focused on like the parents, obviously, and then like the sibling relationship and how, like at first it was like they were all fighting, and obviously like once they had the second loss in their family, like they became closer. But I guess like in the beginning, like that could be something to worry about. It's like a risk or a danger because like I don't know, just you need that sibling bond and that strength. So I that's something that I kind of focused on, but yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
wonderful. Okay, so I see, I'll wait till Nancy. Okay, I kind of watch you, Nancy, and make sure you're not writing before we move on. Okay, so number 4, this one can be tricky. I know there's one that I think stands out most to all of us, and it's the list relevant opportunities presented to this family as a result of the crisis. And I'm guessing, but I'm guessing that all of us put that the siblings appreciated each other a little bit more at the end. It said how they had fought quite a bit actually
Mm-hmm.
before what was his name, Jerry died, and how it just discussed that from his death actually became that appreciation for each other, and how you really don't know when you're going to lose someone you love. And so I think that was one of the main positive opportunities that were presented. Did anyone put anything else besides that?
I just put like they had like a spiritual experience like with the dreams. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's like I don't know. That's just something I put, but I don't know if that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
No,
But yeah.
that's
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I put like I think it strengthened their testimonies. And so with those spiritual experiences, obviously their testimonies, at least from what they said, would grow.
Right.
And especially I would think on the plan of salvation, because being able to be with their sibling again after this life. I've also put that they have the opportunity to set a good example for those who experience losses as well, by the way they choose to cope with this, and they be able to stay together strong as a family. I mean, we talked about risks, but so far from what we know, they are coping with it positively.
Mm-hmm.
And people might be able to see that through the funeral and how they live their lives after.
Yeah, and it might help them in the future know how to handle situations similar, or yeah, those are awesome. Okay, let's make sure. We'll wait for Nancy. Okay, you good, Nancy? We're ready to move on? Okay. All right, so this next one, no important relationship considerations. And this is actually where kind of what Nancy touched on. The first thing I thought of was the twin brother. I think his name was Jeff. Anyway, that's where he kind of popped into my mind as, twins, they just seem to be, I don't know, and Nancy probably knows this, but they share something maybe a little bit different than the other siblings. They're closer, and they share a lot of the same things, like birthdays and things like that. And just what Nancy had touched on, he might need more opportunities to talk about how he's feeling, or to be shown that love and support. Whereas, it would be just as hard on the other siblings, but where they were so close and maybe shared a lot of personal things together or time together, maybe just focusing on him and how he's coping with things as to losing his twin brother. That was the one that popped into my mind at first. Let's see, does anyone else have anything that differs from that?
I kind of felt like this was a repeated
Yeah.
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same things we talked about earlier, like the parents' relationship,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mhm.
and each sibling's relationship.
Yeah, that's are
Yeah.
the ones I put.
It's interesting with twins. One of my twins are on missions right now, so they're old. But in high school, one of them had a ruptured appendix and was really sick and had to be in the hospital for 3 weeks. And it was hard on his brother for several reasons and things that I didn't think about. He thought that since his brother's appendix ruptured, that maybe his was going to, because they had done a lot of similar things. And he was in high school. I mean, but it took him a long time to talk about that. And then I noticed that sometimes they feel a sense of responsibility for each other, almost like the parent, it's hard for a parent to lose a child because they feel a sense of responsibility that I should have been watching out for them. My
Mhm.
kids kind of have that same kind of sense of responsibility, like I'm protecting him or I should be watching out for him. So
Yeah.
it's very
That's interesting. Yeah, that is. Do you think too, maybe I don't know, I don't have kids yet, but I was wondering during this, do you think at first, just trying to process their emotions, do you think the parents were, how do I word this? Worried for their other children in a sense of like, maybe they were scared to fully bond? I don't know, that this sounds crazy, but maybe someone would think, I'm eventually going to lose my kids, where they safeguard themselves a little bit. Not that they wouldn't love them, but maybe they would be a little hesitant about when's the next one going to go, and maybe it would start playing.
Like close to part of their heart because they don't want to get
Yeah,
hurt again.
yeah.
That's something that I could see somebody doing that.
Yeah,
A parent.
kind of pushing away and closing off a little bit.
I think that's really insightful of you if you don't have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My husband's parents' first child had got a smallpox shot and had seizures from that time on. And his dad in later years said, when that happened to our firstborn son, a piece of me closed off to where I thought, I don't ever want to love somebody that much again, that it hurts so bad when we lose them. And
Yeah.
so he did say that and it wasn't purposeful, I don't think, almost
Yeah.
subconscious, but he never quite let himself love another child that way. So
Yeah.
very insightful, Caitlin. I'm surprised that
I was like, I don't want this to come off horrible. But yeah, that vulnerability, maybe they would actually have a harder time bonding with their kids after losing two, thinking, well, I don't, just like you said, I don't want to get hurt like that again. I don't know.
it's interesting.
Yeah, that is. Okay, I'm glad you guys don't think I'm crazy
No.
for thinking that. Okay, I feel like, Nancy, you feel good that we covered that question okay?
Yeah. Do you think there's anything between the mom and the daughter that she had before the marriage, and then she sort of made a bond with her different when they lost the first child? That's kind of an unusual dynamic. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
that crossed my mind as well. Actually, I have a stepson, and so the relationship with him just in the family is different because his other siblings just they don't have the same mom, and he's not around all the time, and so there's just a different relationship there. Even though you want them all to be equal and everything, there's just always something. Their connection with different adults and different siblings are different, and so that could, I think, could potentially be a risk either for or relationship to consider, because either the mom's relationship with the other siblings because may not be as strong because she's always gone to the oldest daughter for emotional support, or vice versa. It could be the other way around. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, let's see. Note. Okay, so those were all really good. The next one is recommend coping strategies. And I had so many come to my mind that I'm like, I don't know. Just tried to think of things that would bring the family together. And that could be anything from making time to have family dinner together, or having family council, or going on family walks, just trying to stay active as a family and not letting it come between those relationships. Where maybe some things that, maybe that's what I would do, and maybe that's why that came to me. But I do think there's something to say, or something so powerful in talking as a family and establishing that trust to talk about things. And I think in those small settings, that's why those are so important, is because that gives that opportunity for people to just talk in their own safe spot together, where maybe they couldn't talk about things as much with friends, or being isolated in their room. I don't see those things as being constructive as much as sticking together as a family during that time.
mm-hmm.
What did anybody else?
The thing I said was practice serving others. I mean, that could be practicing serving outside of the home, but I think it'd be more important as well to serve each other and the family so that everybody feels still connected with one another. Also, I put mood logs. I don't know how.
I did.
Yeah.
I also wrote mood log with a question mark.
That would be really good, but I don't know how.
Or the other one
that family home evening activity.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good idea.
But
yeah. And Nancy, what were you saying? The other one you put down?
Well, one of the exercises from the mindfulness was about taking time to write down a challenge and then working your way through it. And I didn't know I don't know. It just seemed like in the past they, especially with the first loss, they didn't do that, and it really affected their family for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked whoever said this was like they got a second chance to, and hopefully, it really would. But anyway, I just thought of one of the little exercises from the mindfulness that we had to do this week. But I'm also same with the mood, like how would you do that? Would you do that at family night?
yeah.
But they're obviously a family that hasn't communicated really well. So they maybe could use some help learning some communication skills, or something. I don't know.
And I like the challenge you said, to write down a challenge and do it, because I think during that time of loss or crisis, it's easy to be complacent and kind of dwell on things. And when you're doing things and being constructive, there's something to say for that. There's just feeling like you're still, I don't know, kind of human, and not just floating through this time of, depression or whatever can sink in. You're still actively doing things for you and trying, and others, and trying to stay constructive about your days, instead of, because I know for me, even if I don't have anything to do for the day and I just sit around at home, I feel kind of gross. Like I feel down. I don't feel like I've done anything constructive. But when I get up and go to work and get going for the day, I just feel better. My days just go better. And so I think working on a challenge really does help keeping your mind on positive things versus dwelling on what's
Well, and
it.
that same exercise talks a lot about the emotion or the hope. And I think you could maybe help them see the hope of the plan of salvation, the hope of the resurrection, and, work that in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a thought.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I also put like you could talk to someone who has lost a child before. Maybe you have like a family member or someone in church that you're good friends with, and you can maybe just talk about things they have done to overcome this with their family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, from that, just knowing that you're not alone in it
Yeah.
helps. Peace of mind. Okay. Almost done.
Hey, I have one more question.
Okay.
That's the end of the worksheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the grading rubric, they had one other thing that they had on the same on the last case study we did,
Oh, yeah. Let me look here.
and it says it's worth 10 points. Offered at least 2 concrete suggestions regarding how extended family, neighbors, friends, etc., should support this family. So do you think I should include that?
Right. Yeah.
This because it's on the rubric.
Yeah. Maybe we could end on that note and talk about that. Does
Okay.
that sound good, Nancy? And we'll include that in just to be safe. Okay.
Can you state the question again? What was it?
It says that we, in our presentation, offered at least 2 concrete suggestions regarding how extended family, neighbors, friends, etc., respond, could, should, in support of the family. So what we're looking for is ways other people could
Help them.
Could help
support
them.
this family.
Okay.
Anybody got any ideas? I know what I put last time.
I know. I was gonna say. I mean, mine goes to the same thing, but last time I just have such a testimony and such an appreciation for the women and priesthood in our wards. But I think, like this past weekend, for example, I went to Dr. Gottman's Baby Makes 3 conference in Sacramento, and we were probably the only LDS, me and my partner that I'm doing the practicum with. We were the only LDS people there, and the lady presenting was like, in the old day, it used to be that you had a baby and someone would bring you dinner every week and come and offer to clean your house and, stay and come and visit you. And I just thought that's still in the LDS church. That's just what we do. That's still such a strong practice that we have. And I love it because it really does help during those times. And I just felt so blessed to have that knowledge where a lot of the women were like, oh, that would be so nice if someone would just bring me dinner. Cooking dinner, it may seem like such a small thing, but not having to worry about it for my other 4 kids or whatever when I have a baby would be awesome. And I just thought, how we're just so blessed, Our Relief Society is on the ball. Our priesthood is always there to move people in when they're moving into the ward. We just have such a great support system, I think. And so that's where my mind just goes to is a simple pass around sign up sheet during Relief Society to Or they have this new thing where the Relief Society will send us emails, and you can go online and sign up to volunteer to take meals to people. And so, I mean, I think during that time of crisis, those are simple ways that we can show our love and support in the community.
Perfect.
Also, another one to add to, it's basically this kind of this along the same lines, was being able to watch your other children while you're having a new baby brought home. I know that helped with the older kids when we got our youngest home. Is just having different people offer to take my kids on play dates and
Yeah.
for like almost a month, and it helped so much.
Yeah.
So like they could offer to take their children.
Yeah.
So they would get out of the house and have something else to think about.
Yeah.
During this
Do
time.
something fun. Yeah.
So-
go swimming. Go do whatever. Get your mind off.
It could work as like the parents could go on dates more often, or it could be like having individual time with each child, so that they can be connected.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Perfect. All right.
Hey, Melissa, did you want to add anything, or do you think we're
No,
okay?
yeah, I put basically the same like service, and I just think just letting them know that you're there for them is like a huge thing. Letting them know that someone is there to listen or to serve them or there for anything. I think it's just a big thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, you guys. Well, that was great. I think we covered everything. Nancy, is there anything from you that we need to?
No, but if I get stuck, I will.
Maybe you could even message us on the same discussion board, and we can reply back to any questions, or if you need more
If there's a problem,
material.
and Jesse, if you want to email me that would be so good.
I haven't added to it, so it's what I came up with yesterday.
That's okay.
And then
Perfect.
you just put our names on there. Is that how it works?
Yeah, on the top of the thing that I turn in, it just has students' names, and I will just type everybody's names in.
Okay.
I think I'm just gonna probably use the outline they have and just do it in that so that they can see we've covered every one of the things on the rubric.
Okay, that sounds good. And then I will add all of our names to the link, and I'll go ahead and post this link after we're done with this.
But I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means.
Oh, I think maybe we don't even have to post this link,
Yeah, I
but
don't know if we have to post it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do it just to be safe.
Yeah.
Just do it anyways. Just
Yeah, I know. I always am just like, I'll just do it just to make sure. On our discussion board, Nancy, I'm just going to go ahead and post. So this video is live and it's been recording. So I'm going to go ahead and just post it to our discussion board to show our teacher that we did it, and I'll include our names.
Oh, perfect. So, I had no idea.
I know, does that make more sense?
Something.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and